Hello and welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Seltner in our Washington, D.C. studio. It is good to have you here with us. This week, we're going to spend a lot of time speaking with experts on how we can navigate discussions on life issues. Speaking about abortion can get tense and really divisive at times. But what good is it to have strong pro-life views if we're not willing to discuss them with our friends and neighbors? This week, we're joined by someone who converted to the pro-life cause, someone who works with women in unexpected pregnancies, and with congressmen for insight on how to have these discussions about abortion in productive ways. But first, how can you, as a pro-lifer, be involved in the pro-life movement this week? Let's turn to our call to action. In early May, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a health care bill that contains two important pro-life protections. First, it stops our tax dollars from going to health insurance plans that cover abortion. And second, it defunds Planned Parenthood of nearly $500 million of our tax dollars. But these pro-life protections are under attack by Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry. They want the Senate to take the pro-life protections out of the health care bill. This is why it is so urgent your pro-life voices are heard loud and clear. Both of your U.S. senators need to hear from you right now for this week's call to action. Go to your computer or laptop or grab your smartphone and type into your web browser prolifeweekly.com. You'll see a place to type in your name, email address, and zip code. Once you type in that information, you'll click Add My Name. That's it. It's that simple. If you take this call to action, you will add your name to the petition that tells the U.S. Senate to stop using our tax dollars for abortion in the healthcare bill. Make sure your voice is heard on behalf of the unborn. Once again, go to prolifeweekly.com and share this call to action with your friends and neighbors. You see her here almost every week, Marjorie Dannenfelser, the president of the Susan B. Anthony List. She's known for being a pro-life champion and a reliable voice as we sort through pro-life legislation. But if you had known Marjorie years ago, you never think that would be the case because Marjorie used to support abortion. We recently discussed her remarkable pro-life conversion and the power dialogue can have on one individual. Now, we know you, of course, as being a pro-life leader, but that hasn't always been the case. Can you share with us what your views were on abortion as a young woman?
Well, in college and pre-college, I was very adamantly pro-choice. I called it pro-choice. I really believed that the mantra, my body, my choice, was compelling. I would have had an abortion in a minute. I didn't think twice about it. I was at Duke University, and I was the chairman of college Republicans there, along with another guy, and I didn't have any compunction about espousing that view at all. It's kind of amazing to think what a distance the Lord has brought me in that period of time, and I'm very grateful for it. I really am.
And you were a philosophy major at the Duke University, so what was the argument that got you to change your mind? What was it?
I think this is probably the experience of a lot of people who change their mind on something so fundamental like this. It's usually very slow, and I think a philosophy major and the way that I grew up was to really ask questions and to be open-minded in pursuit of the truth. I think that's what serves our children. If they're not in the right place, if they can sort of ingrain in them the idea that the truth is more important than anything and that is the journey. So as a philosophy major, you get to the point when I'm hearing myself say something like my body, my choice, and it simply does not measure up to any standards of criticism or analysis. Clearly there are two different bodies in every single abortion that are affected. And so at one point, I think if there was a point intellectually, I think I could say kind of the pretty easy premise that what if that's another person? What is that happening? In that single act of an abortion, when that thing happens, what happens? What is it?
Right.
And I got to the point at least where I could say, what if it's another person? Why would we even take a chance? Now we go much further than that. It's way beyond what if now. But it made me pause, and sometimes you just need a pause.
And speaking of searching for the truth, in addition to converting to the pro-life movement, you also converted to Catholicism. Did that happen hand in hand?
Yeah, I mean, really, I guess we all know our stories when we get to heaven, so he'll spell it out for me, assuming I'm gonna get there. I'm working on that one. And I think that when your heart is opened on one fundamental truth, a very important fundamental truth, often your heart is open to many of them. Like, you know how if you do learn and practice one virtue really, really well, which is really, really hard, often all the other virtues follow. Now, I'm not going to say that that I've done that completely, even close, but I can say that once my eyes were open to the truth of the pro-life cause, my eyes were also open to what was leading me there, and I think the Holy Spirit was, without question, leading me there from the Episcopal Church to the Catholic Church.
I imagine your personal experiences just must completely shape the way you view when discussing and arguing the pro-life argument, and even provide hope for those who disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is for sure, and that is that everyone who argued with me at that time argued with integrity, and they were not judging me. I was in an environment of trust and friendship and tolerance, even though my views were so reprehensible. And I think without that, it would have been hard to come over. So I think every single time, your words might not be perfect, but the words still stand, and the way that you approach other people with understanding and empathy really makes a difference. And you may go away, and that person, you might not ever know what happens. There's so many people that talk to me that perhaps never knew that my mind was changed, but it does make an enormous difference, and you just got to know that it's worth it to step out and make a difference in just having the conversation.
What a powerful story you have, and I think one that provides a lot of hope for us and our viewers. So when we go to articulate the pro-life message with our neighbors, you never know the fruit that will come from that. Marjorie Dannenfelser, thank you.
Thank you.
You never know how hearts can be changed. Thank you, Marjorie, for sharing your very personal story. It seems as if Congress is more divided than ever when it comes to abortion politics. How can pro-lifers break through that gridlock? I recently sat down with Utah Senator Mike Lee to hear his ideas. Senator Lee, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Abortion is one of the most divisive topics. Abortion in politics, even more so. Working with your colleagues in the Senate who strongly disagree with your pro-life stance, how do you go about dialoguing with them on this issue, and what progress can be made on that front?
First of all, I think it's very important that we send the message of federalism and separation of powers. One of the reasons why Washington politics have become so divisive, so contentious, is because we put all of our eggs in this basket. One of the reasons why every Supreme Court nomination becomes this battle is because we put so much policy-making power, we've assumed into existence policy-making power that the Supreme Court was never supposed to have. So while I might not be able to persuade all of my colleagues who are not pro-life, as I am, to believe like I do, I find that sometimes when pushing the message of federalism and separation of powers, I can help them understand that it's important for us to follow not only the substantive protections in the Constitution, the substantive thou shalt nots, for example, in the Bill of Rights, but also the structural protections. Those structural protections benefit every one of us. And I believe they would do a lot to help us protect human life if we restored them. But there are other things that people who don't agree with us on this can like about federalism and separation of powers. That's why I focus on them.
You've shared a story before when you were 11 years old and a Greyhound bus came and parked in your quiet neighborhood. You were home alone. I think your sister was there too. And a busload of people came out and started protesting for abortion right outside your home. At such a young age, how did that shape how you viewed the abortion debate in America?
Well, it struck me as interesting. It struck me as peculiar and wildly inappropriate, frankly, that they thought that that was the appropriate way to send their message. Look, these people were there in front of my parents' home for the simple reason that they disagreed with the brief my father filed on behalf of the Reagan administration, taking a position that was actually in support of federalism and separation of powers. And in that case, he was saying that, look, the democratic process has worked its will in the state of Ohio, and the democratic process in the state of Ohio and within its political subdivisions, including the city of Akron, deserve a degree of deference when they're being reviewed by the Supreme Court. Even that was apparently too much for these people to handle, and so they had to come and protest. I thought that was an awkward, awful way of doing things, and it also highlighted to me the stakes that are involved in this, that there are people who feel so strongly about this that they're willing to take the steps they were taking that day, and yet they were taking them in order to perpetuate a system that has taken power away from the people where it belongs and moved it into a domain where the people can't reach it. It's taking a debatable matter beyond debate, and not just a debatable matter, but here, the sanctity of human life. And they're willing to say that that is somehow beyond the reach of the American people to influence in their elections and the people they elect, and that's very wrong.
One goal of this program is to hold our pro-life lawmakers, such as yourself, accountable to their pro-life promises. From your perspective, what is the most effective way for our viewers to do that? How can they make sure that their congressmen hear their voices?
Well, first of all, keep doing what you're doing. Keep talking about the sanctity of human life. Keep delivering the message of what this actually involves, what the stakes actually are. Go on social media and post articles that explain things to the American people that some of us take for granted within the pro-life movement. Post articles when you see them about the fact that at 20 weeks of fetal development, it's a known scientific fact that a baby can experience pain, such that an abortion taking place after that needs to be viewed in the barbaric light in which the scientific research suggests that it should be viewed.
That's very helpful. Senator Mike Lee of Utah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Senator Lee for his time. There are some women who, if they find themselves in an unexpected pregnancy, are abortion determined. Maybe it's because of pressure from a boyfriend or misinformation, but many of these women then go online to find out where they can get an abortion. One pro-lifer had the idea to reach those women convicted to get an abortion, through internet search engine marketing. He tells me about his strategy and the impact it's been making in a recent discussion. Joining us now is Brian Fisher, co-founder and president of Human Coalition. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
How did you have this idea to fill this void online? What was the pro-life movement missing?
In 2007, we discovered that there's almost 2 million internet searches a month in the United States for what we call abortion procurement terms. Abortion clinic DC, morning after pill, RU486. And with almost 2 million internet searches a month, we thought, well, wouldn't it be amazing as a mission field to go online and try to find some of those women, and instead of them going to an abortion clinic, direct them to a pro-life pregnancy center to see if we can save a baby or two from abortion.
So these women who see these ads, see these phone numbers for these, what they don't know are pro-life pregnancy centers, call them, they're already determined to get an abortion. How do you then, in that brief period of time on a phone conversation, build trust and convince them to not get an abortion?
An abortion-determined woman, and there's about 1.2 million of them in the country every year, is a woman who is in a very difficult, high-anxiety, insecure environment. So our call agents, their job is not necessarily to talk them into choosing life, it's to have them come in and see us. We're committed to a face-to-face model where we have the chance to interact, love on, and show compassion to the abortion-determined woman. And so in the 90 seconds or 2 minutes that they get on their phone call, their job is to establish trust through listening, understanding, explaining that we're not going to provide an abortion because we won't, but have them come in so we can meet their needs of both themselves and their family.
So what are you finding from these call centers and from women are coming into these pro-life pregnancy centers? What are you finding about them getting an abortion?
Well, they're in some very difficult circumstances. We deal with rape cases and incest, and we deal with abuse, all sorts of different abuses, and so we're talking about women who feel like they have no other choice. In many cases, they're being coerced by a boyfriend or a husband or a parent, and so their first primary emotion is anxiety. We found that if we can create a security system for them, a team that will partner with them and remove some of those obstacles from choosing life, that she is inclined to choose life. You know, the maternal instinct is extremely powerful. And so if we can just get her past the point of being so anxious-ridden to a point where she is calm, there's a great chance that she'll choose life.
You mentioned obstacles. What are some examples of those obstacles that might prevent women from saying yes to life?
Oftentimes it's a perceived financial obstacle. I can't afford a baby. Oftentimes it's relational. My boyfriend has threatened to leave me if I have this child. Sometimes it's just circumstantial. She's ill. She might have a health concern. She might be at risk to lose a job if she is pregnant. But usually it's in those two categories of financial or relational.
Human Coalition is a group built on business principles. You have a business background yourself, a businessman that went into this field. Why is this important for the pro-life movement?
Well, because we keep getting hammered on data, right? I mean, the abortion conversation in America is controlled by the abortion industry, and they have the money and the power and the resources and the data. And so in order to improve, get better and better at rescuing children, which by God's grace we've done over the past 5 years, you have to measure what you're doing. So the way that we do that is we have a technology infrastructure that undergirds everything we do, and we test different ideas, and we can measure how to serve the woman better. And when we find an idea that serves the woman better and saves more babies, we implement it system-wide and we save more children.
Now, this progressive group published what you call a hit piece, criticizing the New York Times for releasing 2 op-eds written by members of the Human Coalition group within the span of a month. How do you respond to that criticism, and how do you respond to the claim that Human Coalition is deceptive?
Well, we're grateful for the criticism because that means we're doing something right. I mean, when a liberal entity criticizes the New York Times for publishing a piece that is pro-life, you know that we've struck a chord. And there's been over 25 pieces published in other publications in response to that. So this is becoming a very interesting time for us at Human Coalition. But we think that it means that the process of reaching a woman with compassion and grace and saving a child is a threat to the abortion industry, which is entirely based on profit making, and they're responding with these sort of allegations. You know, we've had the allegations of being deceptive before. The reality is that our call agents are required to disclose on the calls that we don't do abortions, nor will we perform abortions or refer for them, but that they should come in and see us because we can take care of them and their child. And that is how you build trust, not only with the client, but with the public. And frankly, that's why Human Coalition continues to grow at a breakneck pace.
You never know what can happen with that face-to-face interaction. Brian Fisher of Human Coalition, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
That is a smart response to the pro-life needs in today's world. When we come back, hear about the latest Planned Parenthood propaganda, and Representative Trent Franks opens up about the very personal reasons why he is pro-life. Stay tuned as EWTN Pro-Life Weekly continues after this break. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Katherine Seltner. In our Speak Out segment, we point out the lies and confusion pushed forward by the abortion industry. This week, we have an example of Planned Parenthood trying to scare Americans out of defunding its abortion business. Josh Whedon, the screenwriter, producer, and director known for the Avengers movie series and others, released a short film called Unlocked. The nearly 3-minute video depicts what the world would supposedly look like without Planned Parenthood. One scenario shows a high school girl finding out she's pregnant. Without Planned Parenthood, the short film hints her dreams and college plans would be shattered. Planned Parenthood is using this video to fundraise and pressure Congress to fund its abortion industry. Scare tactics are not a loving way to respond to women in need. How Planned Parenthood is frightening a girl into one of your clinics, pro-woman. This short film from a top Hollywood director is an example of fear-mongering at its worst. Planned Parenthood is trying to stir alarm into the hearts of Americans so they feel required to use their own tax dollars for the abortion industry's pockets. Instead of scaring a woman with an unexpected pregnancy into an abortion clinic, what about offering support instead? Heroic Media shows that kind of response. Let's take a quick look at their video called Ultimatum.
So this pregnancy wasn't planned. It's gonna be okay. Really, there are people that will help you and services available. You don't have to do this alone.
Thank you, Heroic Media, for that video. It is pro-woman to tell a woman who finds herself pregnant, you can do this and I will be there to help you. That is the loving and empowering response from the pro-life movement that the pro-life movement provides to women in need, not the alarm-raising and fear-mongering we so often see from Planned Parenthood. Remember, there is something you can do to counter today's culture of death by following this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com and tell the U.S. Senate to stop using our tax dollars to fund abortion. The pro-life calls to defund Planned Parenthood would go nowhere without pro-life support on Capitol Hill. One of those reliable pro-life voices is Representative Trent Franks of Arizona. This week, we sit down with the congressman to hear why he's been pro-life long before his time in politics. Congressman, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad to be able to be here.
Thank you. Now, you work on a number of pieces of pro-life legislation. Is there one in particular that you're especially passionate and optimistic about?
Well, of course, it would be our Prenatal Non-Discrimination Act or our Pain-Capable Bill or our Born Alive. I think in a way the Pain-Capable Bill in some ways has the first shot to pass the House, and that would protect babies that have become pain-capable, you know, after 20 weeks. We know for sure it happens by then. Certainly there's every indication it happens before then. But you know, we go to great lengths in this country to protect animals from cruelty, and yet sometimes we don't even protect our own little unborn children from the same kind of cruelty. And I hope that this will be a wake-up to the country, and that it will somehow help us understand the reality here. Somehow, you know, show the humanity of the victim and the inhumanity of what's being done to them.
How did you yourself, Congressman, come to be pro-life?
Well, I have to be very open with you. I was pro-life ever since I can remember. My parents were very pro-life. You know, I was born with some problems myself, and I think that they just inculcated that into my own life and my brothers and sister. And so it's something that's been there a long time. But sometimes I think when those of us that have had some challenges in life get a real close-up look at how brief and how precious it is, then we apply that to the world around us.
You know, a number of babies with a prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome are
Yes, ma'am.
aborted. What do you think that
I actually had a brother with Downs. You know, I mean, I could get a little bit emotional even now. He passed away here several years back, but he brought so much to our family. And I think someday, on the other side of eternity, we might find out it was the rest of us that were a little slow instead, because he had such a heart, such an understanding of humanity. And you know, my wife and I've taught little one-year-olds in Sunday school, and some of the little Downs children that we taught, if another baby starts to cry, they'll run over and help him cry. They have such a humanity about them, and they can teach the world a great deal. And so it is especially a broken feeling to me that when we say that a little baby with Down syndrome doesn't have even a right to live or be seen.
is how much those lives can impact our world.
That's right.
Abortion is such a divisive issue. On Capitol Hill, in our culture, how do you go about dialoguing about abortion and life issues without hurting relationships?
Well, sometimes you can't always protect the relationship when it's something of this magnitude. I mean, you know, the last time we debated something of this magnitude in this country, we shot each other to doll rags on the Civil War battlefield. So it is a very serious issue, but really, if we can just ask ourselves one question: does abortion kill a little baby? If it doesn't, I'm willing to quit talking about it. But if abortion really does kill a little baby, then those of us in the greatest country in the history of the world, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, we're also living in the midst of the greatest genocide in the history of the human family. And if that doesn't cause us to pause and wake up, then I'm not sure what will. So it is an issue that should bring us together. Sometimes it divides us, but it's one that if we lovingly speak the truth and yet don't back away from our commitment to protect the innocent, I think eventually America will come around. I see that happening all through history, when that, as I mentioned a moment ago, when the humanity of the victim and the inhumanity of what's being done to them finally dawns on the collective conscience, then things begin to change, and I see that happening even now.
Congressman, thank you for your work and thank you for your time.
Well, God bless you.
That's it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I hope it was helpful to hear from our experts on ways you can discuss the tough life issues at home. Conversion happens at a local level. Remember, you can reach us anytime with questions, ideas, comments at prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. I look forward to seeing you here again next week. Life is a gift. God bless.